What is up, guys? It's Troy at the Full Setup here, back with another video for you. And today I wanted to talk about if you were thinking of buying a Sony A5100 or A6000 in 2021, that there are 5 things that you need to consider before making your purchase. Now, I upgraded to a Sony A6400 at the end of last year. I actually switched over from Panasonic, and now I understand why a lot of people love Sony. Okay, it's got super fast autofocus, it's got a decent size sensor, flip up screens, mic inputs. It's an absolute complete camera, the 6400. For most people, for YouTube content creation, it is a fantastic camera, but it's not a cheap camera. It's a camera that runs in at almost £1,000. And I actually got my A5100 body only because I'd built up some Sony lenses since I bought my 6400 for £175. You can get this camera and the A6000 anywhere between 150 and 300. It's all down to condition and what people want to sell it for and how many are available. It actually took me a while to get one. When I actually wanted to buy one of these, eBay didn't have them, used camera shops didn't have them. The Sony A6000 you can still buy new. The A5100 I think's been discontinued, but I didn't buy this as a main camera. I bought this as a secondary camera. So some of its flaws that I already knew about that I could overlook, you may not want to overlook in your main shooter. So I want to tell you sort of 5 things that you need to consider. And these aren't really down to like image quality and video and all that sort of stuff you can do. These are more just like actual using it and getting the whole thing running, ready to actually start making your video, things that you need to know about. And if you are a streamer, definitely you will want to watch step number 5, because although this and the A6000 do support clean HDMI out, it's not perfect and it does have some issues. So I actually don't own an A6000, but I was looking at it a lot when I purchased the A5100, and they do have some sort of subtle differences which I think is worth mentioning, and the fact that they can be found so closely priced to each other, I think it's worth talking about both. But apologies if I get anything wrong about the Sony A6000. So the first thing for me, which is a big con, no hot shoe on the A5100. Okay, so you're not going to be able to put things like a little fill light or a microphone. You can't attach anything to this. And as your channel grows and as your content grows, you may want to put more stuff on this, but there's ways around it. Okay, and there is which we'll talk about in a second, because the A6000 does have a hot shoe. It's got a hot shoe located in the middle. Now, if you didn't want a cage, which you can buy for this camera and the A6000, for the A6000, there's a cool little adapter, probably some footage here on screen, that I use when I haven't got it in the cage. Plugs into the hot shoe, and then it just clips in where the strap goes, and then it gives me an extra cold shoe or hot shoe, I always forget which one's called, on the side of my camera. Now, you can get cages for the A5100, but they're a little bit harder to find, which brings us over to the next issue with both cameras: flip or not to flip. So with the A6000 6400, the reason I've got the cage is because I'm using a flip screen, and if I mount something right in the middle, I can't see my face. Now, the A5100 has a flip screen, the A6000 doesn't, and that is a big con for me. And that is why, if it's going to be your main camera, I would point you towards the A5100. And this is where you can say, but Troy, it's got a clean HDMI out, I can use an external monitor. And yes, you could do that, but let's just say, if you have a good read on the internet, if you look at the entire line of Sony mirrorless cameras, even up to their full frames, they all do weird and wonderful things with HDMI out and stuff with monitors. And the prime example is my 6400. In 4K, if I plug it into a monitor, you lose face tracking. You only have face tracking if you plug it into a recorder like a Ninja 5, or as I like to use, my Elgato Camlink. Now, lucky for me, I shoot in manual focus, which is again why I like to have a flip screen. When you first get a camera and it's, your first step into this, I made this mistake. I was using my camera and my Panasonic G7 in auto for like 2 years. Like, what a mistake. It took me half an hour online to figure out how to dial my settings in correctly and get better picture quality. And one of those things I like to use is manual focus. When you're sat static like this, you don't need to have autofocus on. You might say, well, that's why I bought the Sony camera, but you really don't need it. And I actually find it's more of a hindrance for me when I'm sat like this, especially with these case fans. It pulsates. With this kit lens, with both cameras, it doesn't like those case fans. It really messes around. And I messed around with all the drive settings. So, that's definitely a big consideration for you there. I would always pick this over the 6000 for that reason. Over to the next thing, which they both lack, which I do think is another huge con, is they don't have a microphone input. Now, you could say that, if you're sitting content and you're doing it here, you're going to have an external microphone. I don't know if you'll still be able to see it in shot once I've cropped it a bit, but I'm using a XLR based microphone here today, okay? Great, you're going to record that separately. You could just record it in Audacity. If you're streaming, you're already going to have a separate USB mic, or you're going to have like another microphone, you know, XLR microphone on your desk. So it's not a problem. But to me, it is a problem because you can't put things like shotguns plugged into it. You know, things change. You may decide that you want to make some different content of video. Just because you're mostly 90% of the time not going to need one doesn't mean you're not going to need it sometimes. And you could get, you know, you could use a lav mic plugged into an external recorder, but that all adds cost. And by the time you actually factor in all that cost, you could probably get maybe an A6300, which I do think has a mic input. I mean, if you're going to be buying all that extra external stuff because you're moving around at a later date, maybe you should wait. But sometimes you can't wait. But for me, not having a microphone input on either camera, huge, massive con. And just to let you know as well, this XLR runs through voice processor down there, comes all the way over to my audio interface, and I've got a cable coming out of my audio interface plugging directly into my camera. So that's the joys of using the microphone input. It's not the same quality as if I recorded it straight into my computer, but it's good enough for YouTube. And I don't have to sync it up afterwards, and I don't have to worry about my computer stopping recording. Number 4 then. 4 and 5, I would say, are a little bit more pointed towards the streamer, okay? So the A6400, right now, I've got it powered from a USB cable going into an iPad charger, okay? I don't need to worry about charging batteries on it. It's USB powered. The little Sony batteries, which I think they use on pretty much all of their mirrorless cameras, even up on the larger full frame ones, don't last very long. And especially when you're new to using a camera and you're learning to use your camera, but at the same time you want to make content, maybe you wanted to make a video today, but then you're having to learn a camera and everything as well, then there's going to be a lot of trial and error. You're going to be setting it up in different ways, dialing in different settings, and then your battery life is going to deplete very fast. And then by the time you want to shoot your video, your battery is pretty much empty. Okay, not so bad for me. Once, you know, I'm used to my camera now, I could shoot any video with the power out because I know that I'm going to get it done before the battery runs out. But then also if you're streaming, you're going to need power, okay? You're going to need power to the camera because you don't want it to cut out after half an hour or 45 minutes. Now, I don't know about the A6000, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't. But the A5100 doesn't allow USB power, okay? If you plug in a USB, it just thinks it's trying to connect to something. So what you're going to need, there should be some B-roll footage here, is you're going to have to buy a dummy battery. So that's about £20. I think they're 15 if you get one that plugs into a USB socket. But just add that to the cost of buying either camera, okay? Pretty simple, plugs into the bottom there. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but there's like a little rubber bit that just kicks out and you plug it in. I didn't know that. It was a little bit annoying because I wanted to use it the day that I got it. Moving over to number 5 then. This is the one for the streamers. Can you see it? Can you see what the problem is? Now, the A5100 is a camera which is heavily used by beauty vloggers. Obviously, the flip up screen, but also because there is a skin smoothing. Okay, there is a beauty mode that you can turn on, which is turned off at the moment. But when you plug it in with HDMI, can you see that there? Can you see all that skin smoothing around here? My nose looks super waxy and it's got the light reflecting off it. Like every now and then it sort of gets a little bit sharp, but you can just sort of see there's this horrible waxiness all over my face, which is going to do your head in. You know, you've bought this camera to be a better picture quality than a webcam, and it still is, even with waxy skin. Now, how do you fix this problem? Well, a lot of people say that if you press record on the camera, that should fix the problem, okay? That's one thing that a lot of people say, but the problem that we have here is, again, battery life. Obviously, we're using the, you know, dummy battery today. How long can your camera record for? I haven't actually tested on the 5100 how long it can record for, but it's not actually the time that it can record for allowed limit. I mean, you could buy a huge SD card, great. Do you know what I mean? Fully fix that problem. The camera is going to overheat. At some point, the camera will overheat. HDMI out, I've had this plugged in all day, hasn't overheated. So how can we solve this horrible skin problem? Well, you can fix it, but you can't fix it with the kit lens that I'm using right here. Now, there is an option that you can turn on in the settings. I'll put which page you need to go to. There should be some B-roll footage, and you need to turn on clear image zoom. Now, if you turn on clear image zoom, that gets rid of it, which I'll show you in a second. The problem is, basically on Sony cameras, when you go to your max focal length, so say when this is at 50 mils, past that, we can start doing the digital zoom. So you just put a tiny amount of digital zoom on and it gets rid of all of this. We can't do that because if we put this at 50 mil, that's what you can see now of my face. The problem is we can't get to that digital zoom threshold. So what you're going to need to buy yourself, you need to add this to the cost, is a prime lens. Okay, you're going to need to buy yourself a prime lens. Now, a lot of people will say the Sigma 16mm f1.4. It's a lens that I still need to pick up. Fantastic lens, 300 to 400 pounds, which, you know, if you're buying the camera for 200 because you're on a budget, isn't really something that you're going to be doing. So there is this lens that I use. This is one that would I recommend that's a bit cheaper, but still may well be expensive for you. Check out my video on this. This is what I was using for my face cam at the beginning of the video. This is the Samyang 16mm f2.0. okay, also sold under Rokinon. It is a manual focus lens, but this is why I said you need to flip up screen. Probably be some b-roll footage here because you put manual focus assist on. I know when all my beard is lit up red that I'm in focus. Really simple, really easy. You can pick this up used for about £150. Might be too expensive for you. So the lens I'm going to show you is this one, the 16mm f2.8, and everyone trashes this lens. Okay, all right, everyone trashes this lens a bit. It doesn't allow the full hybrid autofocus system. It's only contrast detection, face tracking, focus, but like I said, you should be using manual anyway. I didn't actually have the issue with the pulsating RGB fan lights, but this is a fixed 16mm prime that I paid £65–70 for, and now this is going to allow us to add that little bit of digital zoom, and we'll see if the skin smoothing's gone. So I put on the cheap 16mm. Like I said, it's not the best thing in the world, but by the time you shrink it down into a small square on your live stream, it's going to look pretty decent. But as you can see, wide open, lot more view around me. You are probably going to want to crop this in a little bit, but we still got that skin smoothing. So I'm just going to turn it on. And I did forget to mention, I do believe you lose face tracking autofocus as well when you do this. But as you can see there, that skin smoothing now. You can see the bags under my eyes that Troy doesn't sleep very well. You know, the face and stuff. It's all sort of resolved itself. So yeah, for streamers, it's just some things that you need to know about. Don't think that you're going to plug this in and it's going to look flawless straight away. So there you go then. There are just the 5 things that I think you need to consider. And, you know, like I said, I didn't buy this camera as a main shooter, okay? I never planned to buy it as a main shooter. But I'm not trying to take away from it. I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't. I mean, if you're trying to step up from using your mobile phone or a webcam or anything else and you're recording your audio separately, the A5100 and A6000 are perfect cameras. Obviously, like I said there, the HDMI out, if you want to solve that waxy skin issue, you need to add the cost of adding another lens, okay? This lens, you might think, well, it doesn't support Sony's fast hybrid autofocus. That's not what I bought it for. The picture quality is good enough on this lens and will be perfect for you for streaming, okay? Remember as well, you're streaming in 1080p and then you've got a little square that big, okay? So I definitely recommend that. Obviously, you know, the Sigma f1.4 is the lens to get. But then again, the lens that I'm using here was half the price of it and gives perfect picture quality as well. And manual focus is super easy with this camera. So yeah, I'm just waffling there at the end. But if I had to choose between the two, I would still always go for the A5100. I feel like you need that flip screen. Picture quality, video modes, all that stuff, it doesn't matter. The flip screen is something that I feel I need, and the 5100 is enough. And probably, like I said at the beginning of the video, you have to spend a lot more money to get a lot better picture quality than these can get. If you shop around, very good, but definitely think about getting yourself an extra lens if you're using it for streaming. Anyway, I'm waffling. That's it for today. And if you have anything else that you want to add, you know, like I said, I'm not a professional camera channel. Anything, suggestions, let us know in the comments section. Be very interested. And if you would like a video as well on all my webcam settings, everything that I have dialed in to use this camera, please do let me know because I'll make another video on that as well. Anyway, let's leave it as that. Don't forget to subscribe.